Bizarre Reality Media. The reality we live in can be a very strange place. Most of the time, fact being stranger than fiction. How will we ever start to understand this reality we live in unless we question everything? Join me and a guest as we unravel the mysteries of this reality, one topic at a time. This is Inquiries of Our Reality with Shayn Jones. What is up, Bizarre Society, and welcome to the expanse of deep conversational exploration into the fringes of social norms. I'm the one they call Shane, aka the original Shane Squatch, and today for you guys, I have the return of Lord Byron Jester, a seasoned radionics expert and occult researcher who's here to share some mind-blowing insights into the world of radionics while exploring how ancient mysticism meets modern science. Byron's going to reveal how you can harness the hidden powers of the mind to heal, protect, and maybe even shake things up a little bit. And of course, speaking of shaking things up a little bit, we also discuss the strange stories of Mormons and mutilations out of Utah. But before we get into this fascinating conversation, just one piece of news and updates. If anybody is interested in catching the next live episode of Bizarre Inquiries, that'll be happening on May 7th at the usual time, 7:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, in the usual place, the Bizarre Reality Media YouTube channel. And if anybody is interested in submitting any questions, clips, or articles for that, make sure you guys get it to us before then. But if not, we'll pass it along to the next episode. And if anybody is interested in being a guest on the show, sharing your bizarre experiences or encounters, or contacting me for any other reason whatsoever, you guys can do so through email, which is inquiriesofourerealitypodcast@outlook.com, or you guys could always call or text the Bizarre Reality Media hotline, and that number is 313-364-1551. And for any professional inquiries, you guys can email me at bizarrerealitymedia@outlook.com. And if you guys miss any of that, it is all available down in that show description. And with that, let's get into the show. Please welcome back to the show, Radionics enthusiast, Lord Byron Jester. How's it going today, man?
Oh, it's going great, man. Everything's great out here in the great nation of Deseret.
Absolute pleasure to have you back on the show, man. After, I think last time we were running into some technical issues between you mentioning that you were in Utah, and I'm sure that there was a little bit of a connection issue on top of course, the laptop, but it seems like we're already off to a way better start than last time, considering, of course, that you got a new laptop and there hasn't already been any kind of lags, man. So I'm happy to have you back on the show, man, to get into everything without any interruptions this time.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Let's get into it. Let's rock and roll.
So I guess a good spot to start for anybody that possibly missed the last episode or maybe isn't familiar with what Radionics is exactly. Why don't you let them know a little bit about yourself and a little bit about what Radionics is?
Yeah, so I grew up on a small island on the Eastern Shore, and our family's house was the old funeral home for the island, you know. So I kind of grew up around like a lot of paranormal activity and stuff. And pretty much every house I've lived in was haunted. So, you know, what's the common denominator? But I started researching magic, the occult, conspiracies, paranormal at a really young age. Third grade is when I first got into it and started, you know, attempting to perform rituals out of Francis Barrett's The Magus in fourth grade. And I had a crystal ball and everything, man. I was real into it. But I kept putting it on the shelf, and which is probably a good thing, because at that age, you know, you're not supposed to be like some little weird kid sitting inside of a dark room by yourself doing all this weird stuff. And you're supposed to be like playing sports with your brothers, riding bikes around town, getting in fist fights with kids from different neighborhoods. You know, you're not supposed to So
I mean, it makes you kind of wonder, though, if you're not actually under, like, the child occult manipulation of the mind, of course, if you're actually just interested in it and you're actually exploring some of the ideas and philosophy on your own, kind of makes you wonder where your mind might have ended up, if you already, like, started it at an earlier age, because it seems like a lot of this stuff, when you start diving the occult, is, like, reprogramming of thought. So if you're, like, never even set in those ways in the first place, like, I don't know, it just kind of makes you, like, curious where your brain might have gone in the first place,
Oh yeah, totally. I mean, I was always a weird kid, and I was like,
were we all?
yeah, and I was never afraid of being a weird kid. Like I always, my girlfriend says she can't take me anywhere.
Hey, you got to embrace it at a certain point, man. Once you're just become like the weirdo, you just got to embrace being the black sheep. I kind of enjoy it at this point, man. That's why I just go by Shayn Squatch. Like, people call me that at work. Like, I just don't even care anymore.
Oh, yeah. And normies, I mean, they're so lame, dude. Like, why would you even care what they think?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you hear people have these like conversations off to the side, and you're just kind of like, yeah, I'm kind of glad that I kind of stick to my own sphere most of the time anyways. I'll just stick with the weirdos that, kind of see past the veil of reality. But anyways, hopping back into Radionics, man, I didn't mean to sidetrack and interrupt it, but just funny thought.
So, like one of the things that really started kind of shifting my thought process back towards spirituality in like more of a real and meaningful way. I was living in a college town in Western Washington, just south of the Canadian border. Anyone from the West Coast or from the Pacific Northwest knows what town I'm talking about. And like DMT was like a really common thing in that town. Like everyone had access to it, but blasting off on DMT, really, I think, because it just slaps the veil right off your face. It doesn't tune you in to these other things. It just slaps the veil just right off your face, like in a really profound way. And so I think that really did it. But the thing that really catapulted me into taking it extremely serious was someone had put a curse on me. And it was a direct hit. And, you can't exactly go to the cops about it. You can't exactly go to the doctors to remove a curse. So it's basically just, sink or swim, so that was really the moment when, especially because here's the thing with magic, I always looked at it as like the power of prayer, that kind of thing, like I always believed in that because I've always seen it. But when you have like a really direct curse placed on you, you really see just how real and physical and tangible magic is. It's not just like this like law of attraction and power of prayer and wishful thinking. It's a very real, very physical and very external thing that's happening. So that was when I really started breaking it down as a science. And I went all in, man, because once you experience something like that, you can't just turn back. You know what I mean? So I
got a weird side question with this one, just out of curiosity. So at least from like your research and your perspective, like if somebody is dealing with like a curse, for example, there's already like the curse that's being pushed upon by like the person that's putting the curse upon the person. But do you believe, or do you think that the person that's being cursed, if they give more thought to the curse, do you think that it makes it stronger versus like if somebody didn't believe in it whatsoever, they might experience like little things, but it doesn't nearly give it as much power because they're not putting as much thought as an intention on it as say somebody that would believe in the curse happening to them?
That's a good question. Well, first of all, dwelling on a curse isn't going to help you at all. Especially, one of the things that really sucks about magic, it's really hard to find the good information. Like it's extremely difficult to find the good information because it's so oversaturated. So many people in the spiritual community are a complete joke. It's just one of those things. But learning how to clean your aura is really easy. Learning how to take a salt bath is really easy. Learning how to like smudge your house is really easy. So you don't want to dwell on it, but you want to acknowledge it immediately and don't wait, don't hesitate, immediately start taking action to get rid of it. Now, on the flip side, to the other part of the question, people that don't believe in magic, they're at an extreme disadvantage right from the get-go. If you don't believe in magic and you just totally tune it out and you don't think it's going to affect you, you're pretty much fucked. There's nothing you can really, especially like someone that knows what they're doing. Like if someone like me comes after you and you don't believe in magic, there's nothing you can do about it. the analogy I like to use, like, have you ever seen a house cat play with a mouse that it caught?
Yeah.
That's about what would happen. It would basically be like you would basically suffer and suffer and suffer until you expired, and that or until the practitioner forgets about you. And it really just depends on like how good they are, what kind of curse they put on you, that kind of stuff. But
it's kind of weird to think from that perspective. If somebody just like absolutely refused to believe in anything bigger power, bigger than themselves, they could literally just go on having like the series of just awful events happening constantly and just assume that that's just reality and go about their life and just not even like, quote, realize or put thought onto the fact that they're cursed, but still have weird events happening to them. But again, change of perspective. They just think it's just normal things happening.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. They wouldn't even acknowledge it. They would just think it's bad luck, So, yeah, it's that's one of those things. Like, your materialistic scientists, people, like people that call themselves skeptic, even though they're not really skeptics, they just kind of use it as an excuse to be an idiot. Like those kind of people, I mean, yeah, they're dead in the water, I mean, just straight up. And then like, your like nihilistic, like Antifa types. I mean, they're just, they have zero protection, I mean, placing any type of curse on them is going to be a direct hit, even if you're not very good at magic. A white belt can destroy someone like that.
I mean, it seems like a lot of those people, for the most part, they're kind of just manipulated by whatever forces are being pushed towards them. So, I mean, it kind of seems like it's pretty like self-explanatory as far as like whatever, the elite occultists are already pushing on society. They're always like the first ones that fall for all these things anyways. Like their ideology shifts and changes depending on whatever's being thrown at them 90% of the time.
Oh, yeah. I mean, how many flags have we seen in the last 6 years?
And every single one of them that ends up falling, you end up realizing is actually linked to some other group that was making a bunch of different money off of it. And it's always something way deeper than you ever thought it was in the first place. And it wasn't all these humble causes and starts.
Yeah, totally. And they're all like money laundering operations. And yeah, I mean, it's ridiculous. And people keep falling for it. They're just, they just when I look at the human race, like a lot of them, and I hate saying this because I'm a nice guy, but at the same time, I just think of like cats drinking antifreeze out of the gutter. Like they just have no idea that what they're doing is destroying them.
It's kind of like, I know everybody uses the analogy of idiocracy, but it's almost kind of like the point where it's like, everybody's so confused at this point that they think that Gatorade is how you feed plants, not realizing that there's definitely another option, but everybody's so confused at this point that they're just like, this is what we've always done. This is what we do. We follow around with whatever everybody tells us. We follow the herd. This is what we do. We're lemmings. We're sheep.
Yeah. I mean, especially here in America, man. I mean, look how poisonous the food is, Like, I mean, I come from the Pacific Northwest where, up until the political hysteria, everyone ate like all organic. They were anti-fluoride, anti-big pharma, anti-GMO, and then they just kind of got hijacked with the when Trump got in office. They allowed their entire consciousness to get completely hijacked, which was a profound, as bitter as I am to see that happen, it was really profound to see in real time.
Dude, it was so weird to just see the perspective change just from the past like 10 years around like everybody. Like at one point it seemed like nobody cared about politics, and now we've shifted into this thing where it's like that's the start of every conversation is everybody has to figure out what side you're on before they can continue on with the conversation. Like it's gotten to such a weird point that, I mean, growing up, man, I never thought that people would be into politics as far as they are. Like, I mean, even the adults during like the 90s and 2000s and stuff when we were teenagers, they didn't seem like they were nearly as like politically invested as like this generation is. And I mean, that's part of the psyop, man. I mean, getting back into this whole like occult concept and bringing it back to the whole radionics thing, man. It's all about putting thought and intention on things, and that's what they try to do is manipulate the public into always putting thought and intention on whatever they want them to have thought and intention on.
Yeah, and the emotional output these people are putting in is just so chaotic, and it's so incoherent, and these people don't even know what they believe. You see it all the time when people go up and try to interview these people. They ask them like 2 questions and then they spiral out of control and then they leave because they've never even thought about it. It's insane to see like these adults that don't even have a coherent thought that's actually their own.
Dude, and it's crazy though, because you think that it's just everybody that's on the internet, but you actually start having conversations, you actually pay attention to things, you actually just like listen to people having conversations amongst each other. You realize that that is really what the general public is like. They have no idea what's going on with like almost anything. Like, unfortunately, working in cannabis, we have a lot of very liberal leaning people. And it's just kind of like, I'm not saying I'm the right or left by any means, so I don't want anybody to interpret it that way. But, you know, the left-leaning ones,
Same here.
it's like they get caught up in their own ideology most of the time, where you're like, all right, so, you know, you're in here yelling about ICE and all this kind of stuff. But on the other side, you're saying it's totally okay that, you know, people are stealing millions of dollars from the state. It's like, you know, I'm not saying either side is correct in this situation, but, you know, you're going to so far be on one side that you're going to be completely blinded to the messed up stuff that the other side's doing.
Yeah. Dude, in California, dude, they found some auditor found $250 billion in fraud over the last like 8 years. And that was the number that he had to give people, because the actual number was actually higher than that. And he didn't think people would believe it. So he had to shave that number down a little bit, because he didn't think people would believe the amount of fraud that's there. Yeah. I mean, it's nuts.
I'm waiting for that to come down in Michigan too, unfortunately, because we got this weird thing going on where we, of course, are one of those states where it's like really, really blue. So I believe that they're still, as far as I know, sending money to Ukraine like some other states are doing. There's also a bunch of talks about all these like public work programs that there's a bunch of money that's being embezzled out of the government in. And of course, on top of that, the whole thing that this current governor of Michigan ran on, Gretchen Whitmer, was the whole thing of let's fix these damn roads. Like that was literally her slogan. And none of the roads have been fixed, of course. But as this is going on, of course, starting this year, they jumped up to a 24% sales tax, or not sales tax, wholesale tax for cannabis in Michigan, and saying that all that money is supposed to go towards fixing the roads. And of course, like, you know, they've been saying this for years and nothing's actually happening. So where the fuck is this money actually going? Because it's clearly disappearing somewhere. And now they're like messing up the cannabis industry because everybody's going back to buying black market because it costs way too much in the normal market. Like, dude, there's embezzling all over all of these states, man. It just seems like everything is just a giant house, or a giant like house of cards, and it's just a matter of it all collapsing once somebody like wants to just flick it over or actually realizes what's going on. But I mean, that's probably half of what the battle is. The whole psyop with people in general is you want to pull their thought away from, you know, the actual structure of everything falling and just keep throwing them into the idea of thinking that they're building up the structure, because on both sides, whether you're right or left, you think that you're building onto a better structure, a better foundation for all of this stuff, when there's not a very good structure to begin in the first place.
Yeah. And you know, all these social programs can almost all of them be gutted. You know, I mean, people have this weird, and a lot of it's these college age kids, you know, people have this weird idea that if they increase taxes and they increase the cost of living, somehow things are going to be more affordable. And it's like, you know, like
that logic makes no sense.
I know you have to be like mentally deficient to even think that way. You know, I mean,
the only reason you need these public programs is because you tax so much, and then you tax even more to create more public programs. And it's just this constant loop of essentially the government creating their own jobs and just pulling more and more off the system, because everybody's more and more broke because they're trying to make people not broke by taking more money.
Yeah. You know, and you know, like you said, you know, like I'm not right or left, but you know, like, but I do want to say, like, West Coast liberals, especially like north of the Bay, you know, like Northern California, and by Northern California I mean like Humboldt, Mendo, you know, Mount Shasta area, Oregon coast, Western Washington, Vancouver, BC. You know, like these used to be the smartest and the coolest people in the whole country 20 years ago. You know, so watching them get hijacked was insane. I mean, you talk about sorcery, man. And it's just one of those things. But yeah, you know, like moving on to radionics, I think more people need to start exploring these practical spiritual modalities, you know, because, you know, you always hear about like black pilled, red pilled, and gray pilled, and white pilled and stuff. Practical spiritual modalities like magic and radionics are the ultimate white pill. There is no better white pill than practical spiritual modalities, you know, because you can perform miracles in people's lives. You can like literally heal people, heal the sick, save people's lives. Radionics originally started as a healing modality. It was originally developed by doctors. back in the early 1900s. And then, on a darker note, you can, destroy your enemies, but, there's no limit to what you can do with this technology, other than your own like imagination. That's the only limit you have is like what you think you can do, so as long as it's physically possible, you can't like grow giant bat wings to go fly around the city, but that kind of stuff. As long as it's physically possible, you can pretty much do it.
Hold on tight, guys. We'll be right back after this brief commercial break. And now back to the show. I mean, this kind of goes back into like the 7 principles of Hermeticism that, there are things you can manipulate within this reality, but you have to obey by these 7 laws because these 7 laws cannot be like misinterpreted or gone against. And I mean, the very first rule, of course, of that is the universe itself is mental. And in order to use a radionics machine, you have to have belief in the thought that it's actually going to work and exist. Because if you have doubt or you don't believe that it's going to work, then of course it's not going to work. But it seems like that's something that happens with a lot in reality. It's a matter of, people don't want to think that putting thought and intention on things actually creates a difference. But then again, getting into some scientific principles like you were mentioning earlier, I know I mention this one all the time on the show, but like the double slit experiment, you see that things in reality will interact differently when people are observing them or put thought or intention on these things. So of course, that needs to be brought back into a different scope, of course, going into another different law of Hermeticism, the micro mirroring the macro. There it is. So, I mean, you can't, again, go against these laws because that's the only way that these things are going to work.
Yeah, it's funny too, the 7 Hermetic principles, the law of vibration. A lot of people criticize that, saying that it's not real Hermeticism, that it's not like any of the actual original Hermetic text, but that's the one that resonates with me the most,
I mean, one of the hardest things that people, I think, need to understand when it comes to these things is, the same language didn't exist back at the time when these things were being created. So it's almost like, maybe there is a matter of things being interpreted incorrectly, or on the other perspective, it's a matter of these things being interpreted into a better language in order to describe these things. But I guess it kind of depends on what it is, because when it comes to like Hermeticism, for example, when you dive into like the new writings of Hermeticism, it's written by the 3 initiates. So it's somebody or a group, of course, that seems like they've been following Hermeticism for a very long time. So I'm going to assume that they're going to translate the idea and the thoughts correctly. But on the flip side, if this was just like some document that existed thousands of years ago and somebody takes it today and interprets it, then of course, there wasn't the idea and philosophy that traveled through the years with that, of course. So then I think that there'd be more doubt that it was interpreted incorrectly. But considering that it's been something that's kind of existed within mystery schools for a long time, I would assume that they wouldn't allow one of like the main rules of it to be misinterpreted so incorrectly.
Yeah, same with radionics, man. I think so. Like I said, it was originally developed by doctors. I think the first guy was Dr. Abrams, and that was, I want to say, like 1915, 1918, right around there, late 1910s. But it's I can't remember where I learned this, but it's rumored that there was a Masonic lodge, and I'm sure it's like one of those lodges that probably had like Rosicrucians and stuff in it or something. But there was a Masonic lodge in the 1800s that had a couple forms of radionics in their lodge. That was like on display. It was kind of almost like a museum type display, But apparently it was around before the medical industry figured it out back in the early 1920s, which is insane because it was really Dr. Hieronymus that really kind of developed the radionics machines that we see today. With the dials and the input and the antenna. Let me grab one real quick. But so not only were they able to treat disease with radionics with extreme success rate, people were getting rid of cancers and stuff. And at the time, cancer is a death sentence. But they're also able to diagnose people with radionics. And the FDA found out about it, confiscated the machines, destroyed most of them. Some of those machines you can still find, but a lot of them are gone. because of that. A bunch of the doctors got thrown in prison. Some of them died in prison because, doctors are, a lot of them are old and stuff. And it's for that reason. Some people in the radionics community are very skittish to offer healing services, which is really unfortunate because radionics works amazingly well for healing. But let me grab it real quick.
A few moments later.
Okay, here we go. Man, it's one of those things where I would really like to use some wireless headphones, but I don't want the Wi-Fi like straight up to my dome, because it is kind of a pain in. But here is this is a beefcake that I made. So here's the stick plate right here, and stick is like it's like a form of dowsing, So it's not much different than you like using a pendulum, right? So as you put whatever you want on the input here, and then whatever like target or witness or on the output, right? This is the witness well. This is the potentizing well. Is the original dial. So I got the little antenna on it, and 2 input jacks, 2 output jacks. But as you're dialing your rate, you rub your finger on this stick plate, and then it'll stick to it. It'll kind of so it moves across all nice and smooth, and then it'll just kind of. It's almost like if you were to like lick your finger and rub it across the desk at school, how it kind of skips across the surface, or like rubbing your finger across like a balloon, it skips across the surface. So you dial your rate, turn it on, and just let it go. So in its simplest form, it's a thought form amplifier. And some of the old schoolers will definitely argue with me on that. But that's to the best of my experience working with them for these years, that's what I would say is really happening is a thought form amplifier. So where were we at just now?
Well, you're talking about how the old school guys would have described them versus like the new school guys. And actually going on with that, I do have a question actually talking about the old school guys versus I guess the new school guys. Was like the inside components of the machine a little bit different in the day versus what it is now as far as like a lot more like loose end like electrics or anything like that, for example?
For the most part, it's the same. Some people are critical about that the industry hasn't evolved very much. But one thing I will say is like analog works a lot better than digital. And I mean, and even with like movies and music, there's a magic that you can capture with analog that you can't capture with digital, but so the old school machines were kind of built on like the idea of like a crystal radio. You see what I'm saying? But yeah, there has been advances. Like a couple of people are using lasers now, and like this machine, I kind of did a few things different with it, and one of the things I added was a preamp to it. So it has a beefed up preamp, and then it goes through all the dials to get all the frequency down, and then it has a beefed up auxiliary amp, beefed up power supply, and then the antenna. So. But there's all different kinds of machines. So I'll use this one right here. Like this is like a really basic machine right here. This is a vampire box. This is actually my super vampire box. This is my beefed up one. And so you just put a witness sample in the input. This is the input right here. And then it has a filter in it. And it'll take the clean usable energy and strip it and then filter the dirtier energy back to the input and then send the good clean energy to the output. And this one has 2 input jacks, 2 output jacks. So you can plug in multiple machines, daisy chain them together and get a lot of different results. These, going back to baneful magic and stuff, and having someone put a curse on you, these work extremely well for removing curses and fighting against a curse, because you can basically get a thought form. It's like an automatic drawing technique, right? I'll get into that in a second. But you can basically create a thought form that collects that incoming curse and put it in here, and it'll collect it and then strip it clean and then run it to a thought form on the output that sends it back to the sender. Or you can, send it somewhere else or dissolve it, neutralize it. There's a million things you can do. But when you do it right, you can really nuke the person that tried to attack you.
I was say that seems like it'd probably be the best way to go. You got to send it right back at him.
Yeah. So the automatic drawing thought form technique is a really fascinating one. But there you go. You can kind of see it right there. Right. This is one that I made for Prosperity. It has the Nine of Pentacles, the tarot card on it. So it has the thought form from the tarot card for Prosperity. This is material gain. And then the thought form on the back. So what you do is you visualize, let's just go back to the removing a curse, right? You visualize and get into a meditative state of mind, magical state of mind, zone in, and then visualize, create an image of something collecting the curse. It could be like a giant net. It could be like a giant vacuum sucking everything in. Just kind of create. I mean, you could visualize Kirby, the Nintendo character Kirby, just sucking everything in, or maybe Yoshi or something, right? And then you just start scribbling. You just kind of start drawing, and then you'll just feel like right away when it's time to stop, and you just drop the pen, pop, you got your thought form. And that technique works insanely well with Radionics if you're good at it. And especially with these boxes where you don't have any dials on it, these boxes, they work the best with the thought form technique. But I mean, there's so much stuff you can do with these. There was like a few years ago, I want to say like 7 years ago. It was before I moved out to Utah, before COVID and all that. I lost a lot of weight. I was like super skinny, right? And so I wanted to start working out again. So I wanted to use Radionics, try to use it to increase my testosterone, right? And so I printed out the chemical molecule for testosterone, Ares, God of War, and then one of the guys from the golden era of bodybuilding. Those guys that had like peak genetics. And so I used that on myself, dialed my rate. And so I was, like I said, I was in the worst shape of my life in terms of muscle. I was lean, but in terms of like muscle, I was in the worst shape of my life because I used to be pretty fit when I was younger. And within like a few weeks, I got to where, like, just for a warm up, right? Just to kind of get my heart rate up before I started working out, I would do 4 or 5 sets of 100 push-ups, 5 or 6 sets of 100 kettlebell swings. And that was like just my warm up. That was like my pre-funk to getting to start working out, And I mean, it was crazy how fast I got in shape and how in shape I got in that short amount of time. And then I was doing, pull-ups, like with a weighted vest, 40-pound weighted vest, chin dips, pull-ups. So, I mean, I was doing probably about like 150 pull-ups a day, I mean, maybe more if you count Russian pull-ups. I don't really count Russian pull-ups. I was just kind of doing that to work my back muscles and my shoulders. And then when you count like the kettlebells, like different variations of goblet squats, barbarian squats with steel clubs and maces, and lunges and stuff, I was probably doing on leg days. I was doing about 1,000 squats a day, maybe 800 on a light day. It was just crazy, but I didn't just dial in to use the box to increase my testosterone. I specifically did it for the positive aspects of testosterone. So because I was, concerned about maybe getting too much of the negative aspects, because there are side effects with testosterone, but not with the Radionics, man. I mean, it worked like a champ. I didn't have any of the negative side effects, and I just felt like $1,000,000. I was working out twice a day, and it was just crazy how fast it worked. I need to do it again because summer's coming and it's really sunny out here in Utah, and I'm trying to get the Hulk Hogan skin of a hot dog look,
Good old Hulk Hogan skin.
Yeah,
Not too hard, man. You just got to oil yourself up and you might fry a little bit, but
yeah, because when you're from the Pacific Northwest, like right now, I'm tan for someone from the Pacific Northwest, but I'm still not like Utah tan. You know what I mean?
Dude, Utah tan, I'm sure, is a completely different thing considering that it's just straight desert out there. I mean, I'm surprised that anybody's able to just live in the straight desert, and that's coming from somebody from Michigan. I like the cold too much, man.
Oh, yeah. It's not just how sunny it is and how bright it is. It's you're high in elevation and the air is really thin, so you burn really fast. You know, you get a tan in like 20 minutes, you know?
Yeah, dude, that's like a whole other level, man. I've had a few friends that have traveled to like Jackson Hole, Wyoming and stuff, and it's like, you know, they turn pink like a lobster within like an hour or two. Like it's a totally different.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, not to get too sidetracked on all of that stuff, but diving back within the radionics, of course, I guess one thing that I'm kind of curious about is, so if somebody was going to try to, I guess, attempt to use one of these machines, what would be like some of like the first things that you would want to like preemptively do trying to go into this thing? Like I was kind of mentioning before, of course, you have to have like the power of like thought and belief in the fact of what you're doing is actually going to work. But are there any other like prerequisites for somebody that possibly hasn't ever used one of these before or might be interested in using one for the first time?
Yeah, so first of all, radionics is by far the easiest form of practical spiritual modality out there. You know, like almost anyone can just get these machines to work right away. But of course, there's going to be a learning curve. You know, the better you get at it, you know, the better results you're going to get. The one thing when it comes to any form of spirituality, even if you're not into like want to get into magic or radionics, but one thing I think every human being should focus on is psychic development, just doing like power meditations. A book that I recommend everyone get, it's worth its weight in gold, is Basic Psychic Development by John Friedlander. It's an amazing book and it's worth its weight in gold. So, okay, so, you know, starting off right off the bat, I probably wouldn't even start with the thought form technique that I mentioned earlier. You know, that's going to be for someone who's already been doing radionics for like 6 months, maybe a year or two. But you're going to want to maybe just write down on a piece of paper something that you want. Let's say finding a better job, right? And so I would write something really simple on a piece of paper, like find I found I found a new job that is perfect for me, or the best job for me, right? Because you don't want to just find a new job and go to another shithole. You know, no one does. Okay, so put the your witness sample is what it's called, face down on the input, and then put a picture of you, or maybe even just your signature face down on the output, dial your rate and turn it on. And then just let it run until it's about to, you see it coming into fruition. You know, once it's already in the process of manifesting, you can turn the machine off and it'll manifest just fine. How I get because, you know, some things will manifest right away. So when I first got into radionics, I was working in a bar in Washington, right? And I was able to turn business on and off like a light switch. I mean, I made a lot of money, but, you know, when you're working a job like a bar and you turn business on that high, you know, you really got to be like a killer at your job. You know, you have to be like one of those people that can handle that kind of punishment and still keep your cool. You know, but when you're making tips and money, you know, it's easy to do that, I guess. So certain things you can manifest right away. Other things might take a month, a couple of months, maybe even a whole year. So the thing that I found that works the best for me, especially because I'm already into magic. And so the thing that I found best is, I don't have one right close to me, but you know, the 7-day vigil candles, the tall 7-day vigil candles are like 7 inches tall.
Yeah.
I like to program one of those. Put one of those on the output. Put what you want on the input, and then I'll program those. As long as you program it overnight, it'll be fine. But but I have enough machines where I don't have to repurpose them or anything. So I like to let them run for a whole week, and I'll incorporate the planetary correspondence to that. So like I said, I'm going to do something for money. I will start the program on a Thursday, and then I'll finish the program on a Thursday, and then light it on my altar. And something about putting all that, because Radionics is a very clean energy. That's the other thing. When I mentioned Radionics is the easiest system you can possibly do to get good results doing like metaphysics. Not only that, it's the cleanest and the safest. I mean, Radionics is super safe. I mean, magic is a lot safer than people think it is. Like people think that, you're dealing with these forces that you don't know about and stuff. Magic is pretty safe. It can be dangerous if you're an idiot, but I mean, those people kind of deserve it, I feel like, but programming a 7-day candle, because you have all that clean, usable energy that the spirits can take right away. All the information is programmed into the candle. So it's very like plug and play. It's just super easy, and then the light from the candle is almost like a carrier wave, so that's filling the room with that frequency on your altar. And the thing I like about that is you can repurpose your machine right away. So, I mean, even if you're programming it for a whole week like I do, that's excessive. I do it because, like I said, I'm starting on a Thursday, I'm ending on a Thursday because I'm doing something for money for Jupiter. Or let's say you're going to do something for communications or business or like merchants. You could start it on a Wednesday, finish on a Wednesday. Let's say you're going to do something for protection. You can start it on a Sunday, end on a Sunday, or maybe a Thursday for Mars or a Tuesday for Mars. So, or, let's say love, or maybe to get a job interview, you can do it on Friday and end on a Friday. So I like incorporating the planetary days with it, but you repurpose your machine right away. So then you can use your machine for another operation immediately. And then something about just like releasing that energy and then forgetting about it. It works so fast. So many times I light my candle, and then I wake up the next day and it's already working. Like sometimes it works that fast. Sometimes it takes like 2 or 3 days. Sometimes it might take a week or two, but it works so fast when you do that technique. You're lucky you're my boy. I'm sharing this with you.
Inquiries of Our Reality will be right back after this brief commercial break, so stay tuned. And now back to the show. So, also too, as far as like programming these candles, if anybody theoretically like was interested in picking one of these up, do you? I know you have like an online store. Do you sell these on your online store?
Yes, I do. And then I also have my website is almost finished. I already have all my products listed, and I'm listing my services right now. Then I just got to transfer my domain name. So LordByronJester.com is it's pretty much here. It's just going to be probably up in a couple of days. So easily by the weekend. And ByronJester.com.
Not to like sidetrack off of like Radionics, but just out of curiosity, because you mentioned you are living in Utah currently, right?
Yes.
So this is something that I've weirdly been diving into a lot lately. So I figured I'd bring it up with somebody that's living in the area. And it seems like a lot of the time when I try to talk to ufologists about human mutilation being linked with like UFO abduction and the Mormons, there seems to be this like connection between both of these two, that they seem to be very like untalked about subjects. So considering that, of course, you live in the area and you dive into the occult, you're aware of all of this type of stuff. Like what do you like pick up in the area as far as like energy, curses? Like, does it seem like it's a very like active area as far as like the Mormons go, or does it seem like it's almost like a completely like desolate area as far as like the Mormons go?
So I want to say, like, where I lived in Western Washington, it was like a land of like fairies and elves and gnomes, it was very spiritually dense where I lived, and the spirits were very, like, for the most part, benevolent. Nature spirits can mess you up, but for the most part, where I lived, the spirits were awesome. They worked really fast. They had my back, here. So when I moved into this house was built in 1927. So it's a 100-year-old house, and there was a really nasty negative entity in this house, really nasty neg. And I could tell right away with how much residue was in this house. It had been here for like over 30 years, probably over 50. Who knows? It could have been here for almost 100 since the house was up. The spiritual energy here is a lot more spread out than it was in Washington, based, in my opinion, especially like, the nature in Washington compared to the nature out here. But so just a little caveat, I'm just down the road from Skinwalker Ranch. I'm literally in the Uinta Basin. So I'm not far from Skinwalker Ranch. But so here's the thing with the mutilations, man. Mormons are weird, dude, first of all. But there's these multi-generational abuse cults here in Utah. And so this is one of the things that kind of bothers me about the kind of separate, because I've been researching the occult and magic since I was like 8 years old, right? It's third grade. How old is a third grader? That's like 8, right?
Let's
9?
see, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, about 9 years old. Yep.
Okay, 9 years old. Okay, 9, 10 years old. All right. So I've been, but it's so messed up. And a lot of it, a lot of truthers are hardcore Christians. Some of them are more open-minded than others. And everyone sees the occult being used against them. They see the symbolism, they don't quite understand it. They're very fearful of it. And then on the flip side, occultists are so retarded when it comes to conspiracies, because of the way it's sensationalized. A lot of them are still kind of like, because they drank that 40-year-old propaganda from the Satanic Panic, so because of Satanic Panic propaganda from the 80s, they won't even look at a lot of conspiracies, and they're really dumb about it. So it's one of those things where like truthers are kind of retarded about the occult, and then occultists are kind of retarded about the truth. It's one of those things. But there's these multi-generational abuse cults out here in Utah, and they're like, like satanic ritual abuse type cults, even though they're like more Luciferian than Satanists, right? And it's a different type of Luciferian because they have a different interpretation of Lucifer, because it's like a Mormon Lucifer than like a regular Christian Lucifer, right?
Correct me if I'm wrong. The Mormons believe that Lucifer is Jesus' brother, right? Are they one of those ones that believes that? Yeah.
Like Jesus and Lucifer were basically brothers, and they had the thing that caused the split was Elohim and Jesus wanted there to be free will, where people would suffer to allow their souls to evolve. Lucifer wanted Earth to be a paradise and everyone to ascend to like a godlike status, and that's what caused the separation. But so I have the feeling like some of these mutilations, and for the longest time I've kind of thought that there is more like cult activity going on with these mutilations than a UFO type of phenomenon, even though there is like stuff in the skies out here, but and the sky looks different here too because you're so high in altitude. But I really do think a lot of these mutilations are from just these type of dark occultists, and not just dark occultists, like, because it's a different type of animal when you're talking about multi-generational abuse cults.
So do you think that the human mutilations are actually linked to something that the Mormons themselves are doing? Because it seems like when you start diving into this stuff, a lot of people start kind of getting into this like whole MyLab concept. And it seems like when you actually start diving into a lot of these government connections, there's a lot of Mormons in high places, so to speak. And on top of that, I mean, one, they own Skinwalker Ranch. They own a bunch of these different facilities that are, quote, diving into these occult things. And they seem to have this like deterrent a way to say like, oh, UFOs, but it's actually something they're doing that's in a totally different lane. So if it is linked to the Mormons directly, then it would totally make sense that these human mutilations would be something that's actually Mormon related and actually linked to MyLab, which would be completely linking up to a lot of the theories that I've been kind of throwing at, considering that, I mean, you can even see a lot of their workings within like stuff that is kind of publicly being talked about. Like Ivy Ridge, for example, is one that I keep bringing up, that even amongst that show, they brought up the Mormons for like 2 seconds and then they like skipped right past it. Almost like it seems like they're trying to like remain hidden in plain sight, almost, so to speak.
Yeah, well, the Mormons started off with a lot of scandal, and they have this bad habit of burying stuff, and And so now there's been so many kids that have been abused in the church, and they have these huge lawsuits, and they're actually going back to satanic panic. They're using the satanic panic argument. Like, this is just satanic panic. We're not really abusing children. And it's like, dude, so I'm in a small cowboy town, right? It's like cowboys and Indians where I live, except all the cowboys are Mormon. And since we've been here, man, there's been some egregious cases that have gotten buried, you know? There was this one guy, he was a nurse at the hospital, and when people were like recovering from surgery, like women, he would go and like turn the morphine up on their IV drip or whatever, and then they would get all like loopy and stuff, and then he would hard R them. He would R them while they were out of it, and he did this to a bunch of people. The cops go and talk to him. They got him to confess, and then the church found out about it because the cops went, you know, like by themselves and busted this guy, and he was LDS. And then so they basically got the charges dropped and then moved the guy to a different county, to a different hospital, you know. So the church is really bizarre about these kind of cases. And are you familiar with like the Ruby Frank case?
Just for the sake of it, for the listeners that may not be familiar, if you want to kind of like revamp like the main details of it. So they were like one of those family social media influencers, but she was like doing like these weird, like, you know, abusing her kids and stuff. And the young kid was like duct taped in it was almost like a safe room. What do you call those? Panic room. But he was like basically locked in a safe in this mansion. This lady Jody Hildebrandt's house, mansion. And, you know, like Jody Hildebrandt was kind of high up in the church. He had this like show on like the public media, public broadcasting they have there. And this kid was like starved and emaciated. And somehow, by some miracle of like God or something, the kid got out. And so one of the things I want to say about Utah culture is the men here are men. All right. So I really want to emphasize that when I get to this next part. So the kid runs to this house and knocks on the door, and then he's like basically emaciated. You can see like the joints of his bones sticking out and everything. The duct tape had been on for so long, it had like lacerations around his ankles and his arms and stuff. So the guy gives him a banana or whatever. The kid starts eating a banana. He said something about how it's my fault and then passes out. And then so the guy calls 911, and the guy starts breaking down on the phone, you know, from this. Like I said, like the men here are men. Like this isn't like the West Coast where you can't tell a straight guy from a gay guy. The men here are rugged where I live, you know? And but that same idea has happened 3 times in the county that I live in. There was one where a kid was like duct taped to a bed. They were starving him. Cops found out about it, rescued him, and it smelled terrible. Again, like he was like a skeleton, you know, his hips, and you know, you can see the definition in all of his bones because he was so starved. There was another kid, I think it was a girl. She was like locked in the closet for being a bad kid, and they had to the other sister was like sneaking food to her and stuff behind the parents' back, and they got busted. And I mean, there's just like all this outrageous stuff that happens here. Like I said, this is where I live, it's a very small population. I mean, like this is like, I almost kind of wonder if like somewhere within like the Mormon doctrine, like the reason why they have so many kids is because they part of like conducting these experiments is somehow like written into like the fine clause of like, you know, part of like what their philosophy is. Like, even if like the people that are part of the religion aren't aware of it, like the higher ups are aware of that, possibly that is part of the intention, which is a hard thing for a lot of people to understand. Like that kind of goes for a lot of different like groups, whether it's like the Freemasons or the Jews that everybody kind of likes to talk about recently. You know, like there's this group up top that's aware of all these different things, but the majority of the people down below are not aware, even though they're fully wrapped into whatever that ideology is.
Well, it's really bizarre because these people are. So I do want to preface this because I don't think it's fair to call out these cases like these people are all like that. Where I live, like children are the top priority. Like people here view children as like it's almost like a social status, you know, where they kind of judge like prosperity like by having a big family that's a nice family, you know. So and the kids here are like perfect angels compared to like other places, you know, like the East and West Coast. So they're not all like that, but there's enough cases like this here where it's just like, damn, I mean, obviously you guys got to acknowledge this and stop just burying these cases. And especially now that so many people from the West Coast have moved to Utah, basically what I call West Coast refugees, you know, like, so now you have like all these outside eyes looking in, and they really need to start doing something about it. And there was another case too, where a kid was tied up. I think he was like tied up to like a ceiling fan or like chained up like this, and they were starving him and beating him and stuff. And I think he was even like adopted or like a foster kid. So it makes it even kind of worse. And then
if this ties in potentially to like the mutilation cases and stuff, just maybe from like an outside perspective, coming from somebody that like lives in the area and is also into the occult, like what do you think like the reason could be for this? Like, because I know that there's like these particular trademarks that are just like the cattle mutilation, for example, that there's like, you know, part of the lip will be removed, some of the internal organs will be removed. There's this thing with like these little like cores and everything that'll be like removed from people. And I know that there's like a huge fluctuation in these cases that happen back in the UK, and it seems like there's probably a lot of these cases, but they get covered up a lot in the US. And so I'm assuming that there's probably some of these cases that probably happen around your area. But if you have any like awareness of any of this stuff, possibly, like what do you think like the cause or like the reasoning could be for this?
Again, I think it's the actual multi-generational abuse cults that are out here, and these guys are like top secret. You know, they've infiltrated the church. Some of them are as high up as apostle. There's, you know, allegedly, I want to be careful in the church, but so they're basically. Have you heard of the David Hamblin, David Levitt case? Basically,
also too for the listeners, if you want to kind of give them like a quick touch up at least
okay.
on it.
So that's basically like this multi-generational satanic abuse cult. And I'm using satanic abuse cult kind of loosely, like I said, because they're more like Luciferian. It's like, and it's a different type of it's not the type of like Luciferian that like my colleagues are, you know, like these are a totally different type of animal. Like most, and I also want to preface this too, like most black magicians and Luciferians, if you harm a child, they will destroy you. All right. Like if a PDF file ever got his like mugshot and his rap sheet dropped in a black magic forum, he literally has weeks left to live, maybe months. I mean, the guy is done, you know, like we take those people out just for fun, you know, just for target practice, you know.
Well deserved.
I do want to clear. Yeah. I do want to clear that up, you know, so when people hear this stuff, because I don't want to sensationalize it. So this doctor, David Hamblin, he got busted like abusing his daughters, and they, you know, took him to court. They have these back in like the cops have known about this guy since the 90s because he was like abusing his patients, and then his daughters again, you know, grew up in this multi-generational abuse cult where they're being abused since birth. And then, you know, being forced to perform these sexual acts on people, and they're also being trafficked and stuff. David Levitt was the attorney general or district attorney for Utah. Yeah, district attorney for Utah County, and he comes from basically Mormon royalty. I think his brother or cousin, uncle maybe, was the governor of the city. Like the Levitts are basically Utah royalty. So if you go and read these court documents from 2012, and the case got opened back up again just like 5 years ago, because Hamblin got busted. And again, the case got completely buried. But if you go and read these court documents from 2012, the victim statements from the daughters, and they're not lying. These girls are not lying. Like, I mean, Hamblin just did a live stream, and he basically admitted to it on this live stream. He's trying to be careful about how he words it, but he essentially admits to it, saying that he's basically possessed by evil spirits. He doesn't remember. He's disassociated because all the same stuff happened to him, which is true. And this is something that a lot of truthers don't understand, is like when you're dealing with a multi-generational abuse cult, these kids are abused since birth. They're so disassociated that, you know, they don't even really have any idea what they're doing. Plus they have these negative entities attached to them at such a young age that, you know, they're essentially possessed. But it's a rabbit hole, because they go into detail about some of the, you know, human sacrifice and stuff they do. A lot of the times, and another caveat here is you can get away with this stuff in Utah. All right. This one, because a lot of people don't think you could ever get away with this stuff. Dude, we're in the middle of nowhere. One of the cool things I like about Utah, you can drive out in the desert and do whatever you want. Shoot guns, shoot bow and arrow, do magic rituals. You can do anything you want here because the towns are really small. They're spaced really far out, and it's just desert, right? It seems like they would target a lot of Indian kids or illegals that come over, you know, like try to get a hold of one of their kids. And some of these people have money, like David Levitt has a lot of money, so they maybe buy these kids or whatever, but they procure these kids, and they're usually ethnic childs, you know, like if you read the court documents, they're like one of the kids that got sacrificed in great detail in the victim statement was a small black kid. He was like an 8-year-old black kid. And they put like a crown of thorns on him, and then basically have him assume the God form of Jesus, and then mock him while they're torturing him before they behead him. Really, really graphic stuff. But when you go and you start reading about the type of abuse, the type of rituals, removing the organs, to me, like it just fits in perfectly with all these mutilation cases. You know, like that's why I really think this is going on. But dude, I mean, we could spend 3 episodes talking about this case to go into every single thing in detail. I mean, it's nuts. It's completely nuts. And he got away with it. They buried the case. David Levitt straight up left Utah, left the country, bought a castle in Scotland. So he's not even going to see court. You know, he's just going to chill in Scotland with this Indian girl that he stole from the Cheyenne tribe.
Hold that thought. We'll be right back after this brief commercial break. And now back to that deep conversation you crave. Yeah, it seems like a lot of the time these Mormon high-ups, they end up disappearing and just have no ties to anything. Like even the stuff with like Ivy Ridge, like everybody knows the atrocities that happened there, and those guys are still just out and about. Nobody's doing anything about them, and I'm sure that as soon as somebody starts getting close to them again, they're just going to disappear into another country, because that's what it seems like these guys do.
Yeah, and you know the church will help them. Those church will just bury these cases, and I mean I understand burying like these really extreme cases. But do they bury like everything? Like I said, that one guy confessed to the cops that he was raping these women in the hospital, and then the church buried it, got mad at the cops. I think the cops got like reprimanded for it, for doing their jobs and being like decent human beings. And then the guy got moved to another hospital.
And that happens a lot with even like serial killers, man, because you hear about these cases where somebody will be like a poisoner, and then they'll end up getting moved to another hospital, and then they end up continuing on their reign there. And that's why these poisoners end up getting up to numbers that are so ridiculous. Like that's like a double standard there, that you're also getting protected by the Mormons, and you're also getting protected by the hospital itself, because they don't want a scandal.
Yeah. And you know, that's the mindset that so many people have with this kind of stuff. I mean, look at the Boy Scouts. You know, 80,000 kids have been victimized by the Boy Scouts, and they would just move these troop leaders to different areas, just like the Catholic Church. And even the college town that I lived in Washington, just south of the Canadian border, really chill towns, like a hippie town, right? But, you know, in Washington, you have all these trails, you got giant trees, it's dark all the time. And there's a lot of homeless people, and Seattle bust a lot of homeless people up to this town to cut down their population. They just send them up to our town. But, you know, these girls are like walking by themselves because it's a very harmless town, but you do have these deranged people. So these girls would be like attacked, and a lot of times they might get hard, or it might just be attempted because someone sees them and fights the guy off for them. But the college would always, and the town would always, in the newspaper, would always word it as an attempted assault or an attempted robbery. and really just whitewashed the fact that it was a sexual crime, that the guy was trying to R them.
Like I said, they don't.
I mean, it's just natural.
I say they don't want another scandal for the hospital or anything like that either.
Yeah, totally. And so it's really natural. But I mean, but the thing with Utah is it's like I said, I'm in a really small area, and this stuff is happening all like those cases that I talked about happened since I've lived here, and I've only been here for 3 years.
And I feel like there's, again, probably a lot more that's covered up. It's just a matter of, like, these are the ones that you're actually aware of just being a local.
Yeah, they have, like, a 2% like conviction rate here. And that's not even counting the cases that get buried before they even get brought to the police. So a 2% conviction rate for SA crimes. And most of them are on children, here. But like I said, in a lot of ways, these are good people. Like most of the people here aren't like that. It's just there's a lot of turds in the punch bowl, And the thing is, they get away with it because it's such a small area. These people are taught since birth to stick up for the church no matter what, to stick to each other. They call it the beehive state for a reason, And it's just a cultural thing here, and it's really bizarre. There was a
protect the hive mind.
Yeah, there was a PDF here, and he had like a bunch of a couple terabytes of CP on his computer, and he had child sex dolls. I don't even know where you get those. Like, holy crap! I think he had a bunch of them, so I'm not sure if he was selling them to other PDFs. He got sentenced to like 25 years. And then the judge went above that and then gave him like 6 months of county or 3 months. I think it was 3 months, 90 days. Yeah, 90 days. So this guy had like terabytes of CP on his computer. He has like a huge collection of these like child sex dolls. I'm assuming he's selling them to other PDFs in the area. 90 days. This one 18-year-old kid gets mad about it. Says something about, watch your back and sends like a little picture of him like shooting guns out in the desert, basically insinuating to the judge that he's going to shoot him or deserves to get shot. And so he got arrested. So the 18-year-old kid that got upset at the judge for letting this PDF walk the streets is going to do way more time than the PDF will.
That's such a sick thing to think about, man.
Right near the county where the Levitt and Hambling case happened at, there was a cop. I think it was the high school cop. He got busted for being a PDF, and he admitted to SAing a toddler, or maybe an infant. Anyway, a kid like younger than 2, younger than 3, like a really delicate child, and I think he only got a few months. 30 days. He got 30 days. Oh. Yeah, he got even less than the guy out here. 30 days. And he admitted to it. Oh. And got busted.
Oh. I don't even understand how anybody could even fathom that. Like, that's such just beyond depravity. Like, oh.
Well, and the thing is, the men here don't like that stuff, and they don't want to put up with it. Like, there was these some trafficker types that were going around looking into people's houses. Apparently they had been around like the year before or a couple of years before, maybe the year before. So people already knew about it. So they were like peeking in like little kids. And I think these were like from south of the border type of traffickers. I don't think they were like locals. But all the men, this is actually in the town that I live in, all the men grabbed their guns and immediately left the house to go looking for them. Like all the men did in town. And the cops were kind of freaking out, thinking it was going to be a bloodbath. But these guys are just going to take them out in the desert and take care of business, because that's just how you can get away with that here. Like there's nothing to stop you from taking someone out in the middle of the desert and then burying them. It's almost like that movie Casino, how they talk about you can solve a lot of problems out in the desert. It's kind of like that.
Ain't that the truth, man? I wish. That's one of the things that I feel like somebody should never be convicted for is getting rid of a pedophile, because there ain't no fixing that broken.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, and another reason why people should get good at magic and radionics, because what are you going to do at that point? you know, are you going to risk going to jail? You're going to risk your kids growing up without a father because you went and took care, you did what you should have done, you know? So you have the ability to solve these problems without even committing a crime, you know?
Well, I guess that brings us back into a good spot then. Before we get into the words of wisdom, we'll flip this one around a little bit. If anybody wanted to possibly come and pick up one of these machines, if anybody wanted to possibly get some of this information from you, such as possibly getting some candles or possibly even having some more questions, where can people come and contact you, and where can people check out your website?
Yeah, so my main YouTube channel is MyApotheosis. And I changed it to MyApotheosis with Lord Byron Jester because people know me as Lord Byron Jester from all my interviews. So I just thought that'd be a little easier. Anyway, my main YouTube channel is MyApotheosis. On Instagram, it's Lord Byron Jester, all lowercase, all one word. My Etsy is MyApotheosis. And then my website is lordbyronjester.com. And MyApotheosis is a legal church now. I'm a church. Isn't that cool? I actually summoned the spirit of Joseph Smith and the angel Moroni to help me file my documents.
Oh, there you go. Well, not a perfect place other than Utah, right?
Yeah, you know, like when in Rome. And the thing is, like, you know, one of the things that really stuck to me with the Joseph Smith story was, you know, he's like, there's all these different denominations. And so he prays to God. He's like, what do I do here? You know, and the guy's like, just make your own religion. Just make your own church. And I was like, man, that really stuck with me. But yeah, lordbyronjester.com. And one thing I want to say too, you know, going back to the mutilations, the type of like occult crimes that are well documented and they're in the third world are stuff around voodoo and the African traditional religions. Not that everyone that does that stuff is into that stuff, but you know, there are people in Latin America and Africa that will literally sacrifice you just to use one of your organs in a spell, you know? And we're talking about parts of the world where a $20 bill is enough to get your throat slit, you know? So when you hear about these mutilations and organs are missing and things are taken out, I'll guarantee you it was used in a spell. I don't think it's aliens at all. I think it's these, like I said, these networks of multi-generational abuse cults, and they're everywhere. Like I don't think they're all connected like worldwide, but I mean they exist in Latin America, they exist in Africa, they exist, you know, probably Asia. I don't know, but it's just one of those weird things, man. Some people just take things too far, you know. I mean, you see it in every demographic of people. Some people just take it too far. You know, metalheads take things too far. Hippies take things too far. It's just, you know, religious people take things too far. Muslims are, I mean, like base level Muslims take it too far, you know? So it's just one of those things, man. Yeah, you know, I mean, we can move on, but when you start talking about like moving like lips and moving, like removing the heart or the liver, you know, this one guy, he's a college student from America. He gets drugged down in Mexico and he gets killed. The guy was going to use his brain because he's a young college student, right? Was going to use his brain in a spell and throw it in a cauldron. And so the guy kind of comes to and he's like out of it. And the guy is like sodomizing him with his head over the cauldron. And the guy got busted. He ended up getting killed. He hit him in the neck with like a machete or whatever, because there was a fight. You know, the guy was still out of it, so he couldn't really fight off really hard. The student died, but the guy actually got caught. He got busted for it. The guy performing the ritual got busted for it. But this is like, and this is something that occultists don't want to acknowledge is happening, you know, because of satanic panic. And it's like, dude, like, I mean, you can't just deny objective reality, man. Like, this stuff is happening all over the place.
Yeah, exactly. Hold on tight, guys. This is our last break, so stay tuned. And we are back to the show. So let's hop right in. also, too, words of wisdom. We, of course, have to do some words of wisdom before we completely start wrapping stuff up. So I know that you are already kind of saying some words of wisdom, but if there was any other words of wisdom you might want to bestow on the listeners, man, what might it be?
So, yeah, I mean, we kind of got into some of the darker stuff here. One thing I want to say is like practical spiritual modalities like magic and astrology is undeniable proof of creation. Our ability to do this stuff is the part of us that's linked the closest to the creator. That's why we have these abilities to do these things. That's probably why the spirit world is so obedient to us, because it doesn't even make sense to me why spirits would listen to us and do exactly what we tell them to do whenever we tell them to do it. But they do. You know, be respectful. You know, I mean, you don't want to piss off something you can't see, you know, but it's just one of those things. So the thing I really want to say is, there's nothing special about what I do. Yeah, I'm good at it. I have, you know, I worked at it. I had a natural ability to begin with, but anyone can do this. Okay. Anyone can do this. All right. So I just want everyone to know, and no matter what kind of problems you have in your life, I guarantee you can probably solve it with magic, with energy healing, with radionics. So I just want everyone to just keep an open mind. Anyone can do this. The mind is a weapon. Keep it loaded.
Truth, man. And I really appreciate you making the time to come on again today. And I'm really looking forward to next time we get to chat again, man.
Yeah, let's do it.
Big thank you to all of you guys for checking out this week's episodes. Just a reminder, this show wouldn't be possible without listeners like you. Podcasts are a labor of love, and I want to be able to keep this show going for as long as possible. If you guys like to support the show and all the hard work behind it, please consider leaving a review or rating for the show anywhere that you guys happen to listen to the show. It is always appreciated, and I will read it on the show and give you guys a big shout out. You guys can also share the show through word of mouth, because to be honest with you guys, that is the only way that podcasts grow. So anything that you guys do as far as word on the street is always appreciated. And if you guys are in a position to support the show and find value in what I do, please consider donating to the show directly through Cash App, Venmo, or PayPal. That is always the best and absolutely preferred way that you guys can help out the show and make sure that this show is able to keep running for as long as possible. And you guys can also go and check out the Patreon. Over there, you guys get full access for $2.50 a month. If you guys want to see what it's all about, there is a 7-day free trial. And if you guys like it, you guys can hopefully stick around. And last but not least, you guys can go and check out the Bizarre Reality Media merch store with t-shirts just $15.68 plus shipping, which equals out to about $20. So about average for a t-shirt. And you guys can support the little guy in the process. And if you guys want to keep up to date on the show, you guys can go and follow the show on Instagram and on Facebook. And you guys can also catch live shows and video content